Look at that bad boy. You wouldn't think it was the same one, would you? I put some masking tape around the valve here. This is a non-return valve. This thing here is just a bit of a non-return valve, so that, you know, yeah, your vacuum doesn't leak out all the time. That looks nice. I also covered over the brake switch, because that was sandblasted. Covered over that, and just for fun I covered over that one too. Now what we've got to do first of all is we've got to put some anti-seize on here, some washers, and this time we're going to put some spring washers on. I bet you haven't got enough. No, I haven't. I'm going to go and get some nuts and bolts and washers. Right, with I'm going to just use nuts and bolts and washers like they did in the factory. Put a washer on. Well, not nuts and bolts and washers. I'm going to use spring washers and nuts, because if you ever have to take this off when it's on the vehicle, because you just undo that pin, take it off. Well, the last thing you want to be doing is struggling with the threads that's about, I don't know, 25mm long to get nuts off. There isn't a great deal to do to this one. You know, we don't have to set anything up, we just have to put the nuts and bolts back on. I keep saying nuts and bolts, well, they're just nuts. I must remind me to get some more UNF nuts. I'm running out. Everything I do today is metric. I think I'm the only person in this area who does everything in metric, like metric fittings. But you go to the local hardware shop, like Canadian Tire for example, and they're like trying to find 5/16 UNF nuts is like finding chicken's teeth. They just don't seem to exist. I don't know why. And of course, predominantly British cars used UNF, so that was a bit of a pain. So you have to get them all in yourself. That's why you see different shots. I have ducats of all sorts of stuff, just in case. You know what I mean? Don't worry, I haven't finished yet. I'm just going to nip them down with a regular spanner, because I don't know what the torque should be. But as long as they're tight, they're coming off, and you don't want to snap the threads naturally. But there you go, that's that done. Next thing, I'm going to turn this upside down, like that, honeygoo. Spray all the pivots, all the inside of that container with a bit of rust proofing, and that's that. Now, oh, I see a problem. I see a problem, and this is a big problem. I'm not sure, it's like Michelle gave me this servo. Now I don't know how I'm going to do this, but I'll try it. But can you see the rust on the shaft here? Listen it. That's going to rip that seal apart. Now, if there's rust there, oh, there you can see it there. Can you see it there? No, you can't. Yeah. Can you see it there? I'm going to try and put a bit of 600 emery around that shaft and try and clean it up, because we don't want to tear that seal. But has that now got water in here? That's my fear now. Anyway, let me see if I can clean that up and we'll get back. Well, I cleaned it up the best I can with a piece of emery cloth, and it's certainly got the rust off and it's not making that grindy noise. But has that got water in? If it is, it's toast. We don't know. Now, very important. I'm going to do a quick zoom here and hold this like this or like this. Wait a minute. You see this pin here? It's actually adjustable. it's tight into the tube here, but it is adjustable. Never adjust that. You can get better brakes with it, but the problem is you can actually lock up your brakes because the fluid again can't get back to the cylinder. So don't touch that, right? You know, thinking you can get a good pedal. Yes, you can, until the brakes warm up and the fluid expands just that bit, and then it can't get back up into the reservoir like I explained earlier. It's a bit technical, but well, it works. Notice too here, wait a minute, let's do this. There's a groove here. See that little groove? That's to let any moisture out or brake fluid that's leaking out the back of the cylinder. Here. So if this was leaking, it would leak down that little hole, and then it would give you a visual indication that there was something wrong with the cylinder. Now, a little thing about servos. This is quite a small one. I can't remember if it's a type 40, 30, 20, I can't remember. To tell you honest truth, I'm not going to fill my mind full of knowledge of stuff I'll never ever use again. But when they got bigger, the bigger the surface area of this, the better the braking. All right, that's the idea. You use, when you suck out the air from here, atmospheric pressure acts on the surface area of the diaphragm inside, and then pushes on this pin, giving you better braking. So you're using atmospheric pressure, because this is in a vacuum, so it will try and use atmospheric pressure to push and aid the pressure on this pin here. It's quite clever. Now, these old servos and the ones up to 200 TDI were very good. They were very thick metal. On the 300 TDIs, they were like paper. They were pathetically thin. And because when you press on the pedal, when you press on your brake and you press here, and there's obviously a resistance from your brakes when you push here, this being bolted down to your cylinder, it would stress crack through here. Now that's why sometimes people have poor brakes on 300 TDIs, because you can't see it. Right? You put that cylinder on like that, you can't, because of this big flange here, you can't see the little stress cracks. So it stress cracks between the centre of here and the bolts. All right. So you'll think, oh, I've bled the brakes out, I just can't get any good brakes. Well, the thing is, because when you're pulling vacuum, instead of sealing this as a vacuum, because this is a non-return valve in here, it's actually pulling air through here, and then the servo's doing nothing. I hope you get that. I haven't got one to show you, but that's what they do. And trying to weld them up, honestly, it's like tissue paper. The only way really is to replace them. I replace 300 TDI Duff servos now with Disco 2 ones or Disco 1s, and they work a lot better. They're smaller, they're like this, but they're made them double servos. So in actual fact, if you had a grip, if the surface area of a Disco 1 or a Disco 2, and I think on the Pumas or TD5s, if you worked out the surface area, they'd be about this diameter, and you wouldn't be able to get them in. So they did them double acting. Yeah. Anyway, that's that. So we'll put a bit of this on here, and we'll put a bit of this on here. We'll put a bit more on there because I missed that bit. This is just to rust proof it. Now, am I going to take this to bits? No. Why? Well, there's pins and all sorts in here for the brakes, you know, like to hold this reservoir on. Well, there's two brackets here, but there's all sorts of little bits and pieces in here that I don't particularly want to touch, and also I just don't want to bugger it up. So, but what I'm going to do, just to aid this along, I'm going to get my red rubber grease. I'll push this to one side so you can see a bit better. Push this on the deck, push this down like that, and then put some rubber grease in here. It's kind of tricky to do, but They just don't lube anything up. See, that's a lot better now. Before I had to push it down, I couldn't get it in. Right, we'll put that on. Don't worry about stains and stuff like that. That'll all come out. And then we'll put the nuts back on. Again, spring washers, you don't want these to vibrate off. Oh, better put the top on this rubber grease. It's like gold dust over here because you can't get it. Well, you can, but it's not very good stuff. Now, what size spanner is that? I guess that's 5/8. Every spanner imaginable out there. Now this is what's called a North American spec, and there were so many different cylinders fitted to these vehicles. You just don't know which one's which. Long wheelbase, short wheelbase. I don't know. But the ports here, I'm going to check in a minute. But first of all, I'm going to get a 5/8 socket and fasten a socket or a spanner. I'll get a spanner. Oh, it's either 11/16 or 17mm. I'm not really sure. I'll tighten that down. We'll nip it down in the car once it's on, because it's kind of hard to hold. Right, that's that. Now, Land Rover changed in 1980 or 79 or 80, changed to metric fittings on all its vehicles, except for some, because some of them still had Whitworth. They couldn't be bothered changing. But they changed halfway through. As I was mentioning earlier, there was different types of cylinders. There was one that looks identical to this, but it was metric. Now this hasn't got any markings on or identifications on it at all to tell us actually what it is. So I'm going to pull those plugs out. Have I got a screwdriver here? I've been working on the car down at the other end, so I've been moving all my tools. I'll pull these plugs out, we'll get a selection of brake fittings and we'll try them. I just pulled the plug out of this one and it's marked 7/16. I bet it's 7/16 UNF and 3/8 for this one. Now, this is going to cause some awful problems because I am almost out of 7/16 fittings. Yep, 7/16 for that one, 3/8 for that one. I'll leave that one in there. 7/16. Now, is it this one? Yes, it is. Now this one's the front brakes and this is the back brakes. Don't think it's the other way around. Now, why I laugh is because I couldn't find a 7/16 threaded fitting here in Canada. So I got my friend JP to get a 7/16 NF bolt, and he turned it down to correspond to the same fitting that's in a regular brake pipe. So it's got a bore in it of 3/16, and he's machined a little. He's undercut the threads here. That's very important, because if you don't have that undercut, you'll bottom out the threads. These are designed for this undercut. Very, very important. North American ones, the threads go right to the end, and that's a deceiving thing. But if I got a 7/16 fitting here, the bore would be 5/16, because North American vehicles use a hell of a big size brake pipe, whereas we use this little weedy 3/16. So what I'm trying to say is we got this bored out, so that bolt will do the job. So what I'm going to have to do now is go down and get him to knock off a few more. It's quite easy for him, he just puts it in the lathe and turns them down. But it's a thing to be aware of. So fortunately we've got some fittings. Now I don't think I'm going to have enough fittings, because I use very little in UNF fittings now, like inch size. It's all metric. Now again, once we've screwed that fitting down like that, I like that, please. No, we didn't need that. You can see that the bolt head is not touching the body of the bracket of the cylinder. It's very important. If it's touching the head, if it's touching the body, the compression fitting's not going to work at all. So we were right on that one. So the next thing is to let that paint dry, and then we'll go and fit them.